This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and it's Smackdown time. We haven't done one of those in a while, so here we have the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra, and this is the S20 Plus. They're about to go on sale, and I know some of you are still trying to decide between them. Yes, I haven't done the full reviews yet. I will do that, but in the meantime, we're not going to focus so much on the camera. There are already so many videos out there that are paying attention to the cameras on these, and Samsung is supposedly going to have an update for the Ultra to help it with the focusing issues that it's been having. So if they can get that out by release date, I figure I'm going to wait a little bit on my Ultra review until then. But there's other important differences besides the $200 price difference. We're going to find out now. So a lot's actually the same between these two phones. We'll call them expensive and expensiver. We're in the United States. So in the United States, the S20 Plus starts at $1199 and the Ultra starts at $1399, and we have the Qualcomm Snapdragon CPU inside and the X55 5G modem, which covers low, mid, and millimeter wave high band 5G. So you've got all that stuff covered. You're going to get the Snapdragon 865 no matter what, and you're going to get fast internal storage, a micro SD card slot, the same AMOLED 2X, whatever marketing name Samsung is using it for their latest, greatest, and really the nicest so far, AMOLED displays on board. There's no headphone jack on either of these. Yeah. So both of them start at 128 gigs of storage, and I never thought I'd have to say this beyond Apple, but really, I'm spending this much money on a phone for 128 gigs of storage. Both of them are available with storage upgrades. You can go up to 512 gigs of storage. That will cost you $200 with the Ultra in addition. Imagine that price, $1599. That does also get you 16 gigs of RAM instead of the base 12 gigs of RAM, which is totally overkill. I wouldn't pay money for that particular thing. And on the S20 Plus is $149 if you want to go from 128 to 512 gigs of storage. The 12 gigs of RAM stays the same with both models there. So what's different besides obviously the size on these? Well, one is a 6.7-inch display, one is a 6.9-inch display. Small difference, but the physicality of the phones is, well, the Ultra is much bigger because of the cameras that are inside. We have a 4,500 milliamp battery inside the S20 Plus and a 5,000 milliamp battery inside the Ultra, which is a phenomenal amount of battery power. Then again, I have to say, if you look at even the little S20, the one we're not covering today, that one has 4,000 milliamps still, and that's as much as a OnePlus 7T Pro McLaren 5G. So hey, good on Samsung. It's a lot of battery capacity for any of these phones. For selfie cameras, you have a 10 megapixel on the 20 Plus and a 40 megapixel on the Ultra. You know who you are. If you use the selfie camera a lot, then that can be appealing. I find the selfies on the Ultra a little bit soft sometimes, but I think that they can improve that pretty quickly. And for the camera differences, you can see those on screen right now. The selling point of the Ultra, obviously, the thing that Samsung has been capitalizing on their marketing is that 108 megapixel main camera. If you're wondering why reviewers are focusing on that, pun intended, so much, it's because that's the big selling point. That's what Samsung is pushing. Again, there are other differences. So, in the S20 Plus's favor, it's available in colors. Hello. I mean, just look at that color selection there, and you got to wonder why the flagship is the one that you can get in either black or kind of a deep battleship gray only. What? Yeah. The weight difference is actually noticeable. Now, I'm a big phone person. I use a Galaxy Note 10 Plus and an iPhone 11 Pro Max. Those are big, heavy phones, but let me tell you, the weight is really noticeable when you're talking about 32 grams heavier. You're talking over ½ pound for that Ultra, and that's the same amount of weight you would have, say, in an 8-inch tablet, but in a more dense, smaller area. And it really kind of drags on you. I hold it, I use it, and personally, I feel like I can't wait to put it down. I don't feel that way about the S20 Plus. This is a personal preference thing, and I really, if you're on the fence about this, I really say just go out and try them for yourselves, because some people are okay with weight. Some people are okay with giant phones. I'm okay with giant phones to a certain extent. The OnePlus 7T Pro McLaren 5G, for example, is an example of a phone that I find a little unwieldy. My Note 10 Plus, when I have to have a case on it, gets on my nerves a little bit. It's kind of big, but I deal with it because I like big screen phones. The Ultra obviously does have a bigger footprint, though it isn't any wider than a Note 10 Plus, which means you don't have to stretch your hands anymore to get around it. The S20 Plus has the usual blazingly fast dual-pixel autofocus system that we've seen on flagship phone cameras for a while. So if you're going to take action photos, which includes things like zippy kids and your pets, it's the best bet, because I don't think that Samsung's ever going to be able to get the autofocus as fast on the Ultra. It uses something called phase detection autofocus, which we see on SLRs, and it doesn't have as many focus points. It just can't be quite as fast. So action photography, S20 Plus for the win. The S20 Plus has 3x hybrid optical zoom. Why is it hybrid? Well, it's a 64 megapixel sensor, but the focal length of the sensor isn't much different from the main one. It's not particularly telly. What they're really doing is cropping in, but they still get a good result with that, which is a selling point compared to most any 2019 flagship phone. Most of them topped out at 2x optical zoom. So you've actually reached the point now where you've got a nice standard kit lens kind of zoom range on a phone. Your usual 3x zoom that gets bundled with a digital SLR. Sweet. By the way, that 3x optical zoom, shooting out to 5x to even 10x sometimes, you get a pretty usable image. So that adds even more versatility without having to pay more and go with the bigger, heavier Ultra. The camera bump on the back and the size of the camera module, but I think most people care about the bump, is not nearly as tall. So while that's nice, it doesn't wobble on the table so much like the Ultra does, but also you don't have to put as thick a case on it just to protect the camera module area and the camera glass, because obviously the case has to be thick enough to be a little bit taller than the bump is. Now for Team Ultra, go zoom. I mean, this is pretty amazing. I mean, I don't know if you all remember when Samsung actually made a phone that had a physical zooming, came out the back of the phone kind of lens on it. We don't have to do that anymore. They do clever things. It's sort of like a periscope or a pentaprism trick to actually achieve 10x optical zoom on this phone. And for those of you who are into shooting wildlife, hopefully not the fastest moving wildlife, it's great. If you go to sporting events, it's pretty good. It's the ultimate zoo phone, let's put it that way. You can never get that close to the animals in the zoo, and instead of bringing along a honking big lens this long just to get those shots, you can do this with a camera phone and get pretty good quality images. Wow, I mean, there's nothing like it. And you can see the comparison on screen where 3x versus 10x zoom gets you. That's a significant change in your zoom range, and also in the quality. This is going to be a little harder to see, this one, without actually using something like use your laptop or something with a bigger screen to look at this. But you can see that while the S20 Plus does a pretty good job with the 10x zoom using some digital technique there, you can see some fringing and stuff around the plant leaves and the yucca plant in particularly. And also another thing is better dynamic range on the S20 Ultra. That really big sensor helps with that. Both of them, as you can see in the wedding cake picture here, can achieve some natural bokeh or background blur without having to resort to portrait mode, which is pretty pleasing, but you're going to get a lot more of that with the S20 Ultra. The drawback with the S20 Ultra, that is just like when people go from a point and shoot or an APS-C sensor to a full frame camera, for those of you who are camera people, you know what happens when you get your first full frame camera. And you notice how shallow the depth of field is, and almost nothing seems to be in focus that you want to have in focus. So you're going to have to learn technique with this, even if and when Samsung fixes the hunting autofocus problem, which is occasionally annoying, and mostly that's annoying, by the way, when shooting video, because you'll see it hunting while you're shooting a video. With still shots, most of the time you just give it a second and it'll get it. Next, you get 11% more battery capacity, 500 milliamps more for that full 5,000 milliamps. And given the fact you're running on the same processor and really close in screen size, 0.2 inches screen size change is not really going to change your battery life much. They both have the same display resolution on them. So think of it as 11% more battery life. And that's important, particularly if you actually are in a 5G coverage area, because that does use more battery power. Now, the only caveat would be is I'm sure those bigger sensors on the Ultra use more power too. So if you are an absolute crazy shutterbug, you might be able to drain the battery more quickly, and you might say then it would need that 500 milliamp. But probably most people, most of the time you're not taking pictures for hours every day. It's just a win. So there you have it, the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra versus the S20 Plus. $200 sets them apart, and some other things that are important besides those cameras. Hopefully this makes it a little easier for you to decide. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and do hit the notification bell and thumbs up if you like this vid.